modern day slavery still exists in
things that may or may not be offensive.
banning social media for children under 16.
Was slain in a drive-by shooting.
Shockingly, he did not have any cash on him. James,
What's cooking, G?
welcome back. Another Sunday afternoon in the podcast studio. Glad to report that there were no lockout incidents this week. Close call. I did leave one set of keys inside. Luckily, I had another set in the car, so we were still able to get into the studio. Anything interesting happened?
Can't
your
top
way?
that anecdote, brother.
No, you can't. I see you've cut your hair. This is a radical departure in style for you, James. Anything driving this decision to change your hair?
Midlife crisis.
Midlife crisis, James. I don't believe you're old enough yet. What are you, mid-30s?
What did the Bible give us? 70?
About 70, I think so.
Yeah, I'm over the threshold. So,
Okay.
time to start taking drastic action, right?
Okay, yeah, yep. Anything else been happening this week, your end?
Not much, brother.
I had an interesting interaction the other day.
Tell us.
I'm offended, I must say. I went to a hotel and there was quite a nice looking flower inside there. Now, I unfortunately suffer quite badly from hay fever, and this flower triggered that hay fever. So I'm actually personally offended that this hotel decided to leave this flower inside. Similarly, someone called Serena Williams. James, are you familiar with Serena Williams?
I saw this story this week. This was an interesting one.
Yeah, so...
She was offended, right?
Yeah, she was offended.
She was staying in a top of the line hotel.
Yep.
With her husband, who I think is a finance guy. So she's worth a few $100 million.
Yeah.
The husband's worth quite a lot of money.
So what does Serena Williams do exactly? She's a tennis player of some sort?
She used to be the most successful tennis player in the world by some margin. Her sister Venus was also pretty good as well.
Okay, and she's a black American woman, I believe?
Black American woman,
Okay.
black and proud.
Yeah.
From Compton.
Compton, okay.
Yep. One of their sisters was slain in a drive-by shooting as the game shuts out in the opening to Hate It or Love It, that classic...
Wait, actually? Is that...
Yeah,
Okay,
classic-
all right. Well, I suddenly do
classic
have
track.
I suddenly do have a newfound respect if that is actually truth.
No, I mean, I lost what I did have. I did have that respect just because she got the shout out from the game back in the day.
Yeah.
But no, she saw, what was it, Sar? She saw that there was a cotton plant decorating the lobby of this hotel where she was staying with her hubby, and she took offense. She chose to take offense.
She chose to take offense. She said, how does everyone feel about a cotton plant in the hotel? It doesn't feel great. Now, there's a few ways to read that. Perhaps she didn't like the aesthetics of the cotton plant. I've never seen a cotton plant prior to seeing this post. I looked at the plant and it looked quite great. I think she may have said it reminded her of makeup removal swabs or something.
Aesthetically, I had no problem with the decoration.
No, it looked fantastic. I think it looked quite nice.
But what I find interesting is she was obviously taking offense. She was choosing to take offense because she took the cotton plant to be a reminder of the United States history of slavery, and where black slaves were used to pick cotton. And do we think this is a direct enough reminder of slavery in order to justify this very, very wealthy, very privileged woman staying in a 5-star hotel to justify her decision to take offense? What do you reckon, sir?
Look, she's clutching at straws a bit, isn't she, really?
She's clutching at cotton, that's it.
Yes, clutching at cotton, so to speak. I think slaves are also used to harvest cane sugar back in the day. It's important to...
what about chains, Saad? I mean, often you'll see someone wearing chains around their neck.
Yes.
Now, what else were chains used for?
Keeping slaves
from
running away.
Exactly.
And look, let's get something straight, guys. I do not condone slavery. It was an awful part of human history, but I think that's the important word there, human history. Every society that has ever existed, ever, has had slaves in some way, shape, or form. Now, the way that some people talk about black slaves, they act as if these white people, I believe that most of the slave traders were part of a certain ethnic group, which we won't go into. You can look that up yourself, guys. But let's just call them white for the time being. It's a more convenient, or it's an inconvenient truth, rather. They act as if they went to Africa, found random black people, and then took them to America. But James, I don't think that's exactly what happened. How did they get a hold of these black slaves that then went to America?
they were enslaved already. They were pre-enslaved, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
So these the African tribal chiefs, warlords, the ruling party or the ruling elites at the time in Africa, or whichever country in Africa, they kept slaves and they sold these black slaves to people in America. So it's not like these black people were just taken by white people randomly and then enslaved. They were actually sold by other black people. That doesn't excuse it. It doesn't justify it. Slavery is awful, but every society throughout history has had slaves. And one could argue that modern day slavery still exists in many parts of the world.
Well, it definitely does exist.
Yeah, yes.
And I mean, if you had a look at the clothing that Serena Williams was wearing, the fashion accessories, the electronics that she was using to tweet her outrage, at least some of those, more than one of those things that were on her person at the time that she was expressing her outrage would have been manufactured with at least a child slave labor component.
100%, James. I just think it's a bit hypocritical of her to come out and say this, and it's almost as if she's trying to remain relevant after her tennis career has finished. She had a very successful tennis career. I know nothing about tennis. I think it's, two people hitting a ball back and forth, whoop-de-doo, don't really care. Doesn't do it for me. James, I think you and I, we had a brief stint at playing tennis 1 year. We tried for a few weeks, remember?
I'm quite good at tennis.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm quite good at tennis.
Okay, but back in those days, I think...
Compared to you, I am.
Compared to me, yeah. I think that we both actually decided to stop and decided to try playing cricket again. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that. I think you might be misremembering something.
No, I don't. No. Me and you, I think we decided one summer, to not play cricket, to try tennis. Mm-hmm. So we did tennis. And you're right. I think you knew what you were doing. I didn't. After a few weeks, we were like... nah, this is not for me, and I left, and perhaps you came with me, but we both went and joined cricket for the under-14 Cs, I believe. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that?
No.
You don't? Okay. I distinctly remember that. I think people were quite happy that you were playing because you had a bit of a mean leg spin back in the day. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, back to Serena Williams and slavery. Why do you think she posted this?
I think you're right, Saad. I think she was in need of some attention for whatever reason. She'd run out of attention that day, and she chose to take offense. You can take offense in any number of things. You have to get creative. And basically, she probably just ran out of attention that day.
Yeah, it's we live in the attention economy. I mean, you and I, we're known to try and garner a bit of attention online with some of the things that we say, which may or may not be true. Everything in this podcast may or may not be true. Who knows? But you certainly can't accuse Serena Williams of... you certainly can't blame Serena Williams for trying to garner that attention.
Well, you can. But in doing so, you'd only give her what she sought to get in the first place, wouldn't you? You'd be punishing her with the very quantity that she sought to elicit to begin with. So would it be any punishment at all to condemn Serena Williams? It wouldn't be, would it?
No, and I think... I'm not sure if she's aware of the materials that sports clothing is manufactured from, but I do believe that cotton is one of the best fibers for sports clothing, in terms of wicking away moisture, breathability, and whatnot. So for her to take offense to cotton, I just don't understand.
What is the status of Nike's production? I'm not sure if she's sponsored by Nike. I think she was. But what is this? Because back in the day, back in the 90s, Nike's use of sweatshop labor was notorious.
Yes. Are
they still getting the tick? Are they still sweatshop free these days? I'd love to know.
Look,
did anyone bring that up?
No one. I haven't seen anything regarding that. But let's be honest here. Most of these big brands, they may, get the sweatshop free tick. But what does that really mean? It probably means that they're paying the people working there a paltry, absolutely, unsubstantial wage just to be there. Maybe slightly over the poverty line, still taking advantage of cheap manufacturing, perhaps not giving their workers the best working conditions, all in order to provide us with overpriced designer clothing. As a general rule, I don't wear branded clothing anymore for that reason. I much prefer just cheap, generic things like these trousers. These trousers, this shirt. No brands, no nothing. I'm not a fan of it. A lot of people are, and that's great. But think about it. A Nike t-shirt might sell for $80, $100. How much do you think that cost to make? This is almost actually Hannah Ferguson level of advertising genius, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
One thing that actually, you and I the other night, we caught up and watched the latest episode of South Park. A lot of hype around that episode. A bit disappointing.
What do you reckon? Yeah.
Look, I think that episode was.
They've been on fire so far this season.
They have been on fire so far.
The Charlie Kirk episode was gold.
That was brilliant. Cartman as Charlie Kirk was brilliant. So much so that Charlie Kirk, rest in peace, actually adopted the avatar of the picture of Cartman as him as his avatar on social media.
He took it in good humor.
He took it in
exactly.
stride. I think that tells you a lot about the kind of person that he was. I think Donald Trump has expressed a few words of outrage against his portrayal on South Park.
Kirsty Noem, the head of Homeland Security, the head of ICE.
Oh, yes.
She did not take kindly to it.
Yeah.
She accused them of being sexist, of taking her on simply because she was a high-profile woman in charge. What did you think of that episode?
That was fantastic. The fact that her face kept on melting off that was
and running away.
Absolute brilliant.
That was gold.
I think the pun on AI in that episode when Randy, Stan's dad, he owns the marijuana company. They pivot into an AI tech company, which I think was a bit of commentary on the state of things today. I mean, today you're buying an AI-powered washing machine, an AI-powered fridge. Really, I mean, it's going a bit too far. I think AI does exist. It is a legitimate technology, but it's also the latest buzzword. I think quantum a few years ago was a buzzword. You know, quantum powered television, your quantum hairdryer, your quantum fridge. Now it's everything has AI, and I think they were.
Do you use it, Saad? Do you use ChatGPT?
Oh, 100%. I use it all the time. I'm careful to use it to help me rather than do work for me, because there are some studies showing that people who use AI extensively do have degradation of parts of their brain that are used for executive function, which makes sense. You know, use it or lose it. If you are using AI to do all the heavy lifting for you, to do all the work for you, naturally you're going to lose that ability. Now,
the same is true, though, of, say, Google Maps, right? I mean, if you use Google Maps, then your ability, your directional sense, your spatial reasoning takes a massive hit. For that reason, should we avoid using Google Maps? What do you think?
That's an interesting debate. Well, interestingly, James, do you remember any of your friends' phone numbers?
I remember yours.
Yes.
Yeah. I know yours by heart.
Which one? The
0433 8XX.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, you know that one. I remember my mother's phone number, my father's phone number, a couple of old landline numbers. I remember from back in the day. Some numbers that you may be familiar with. Who we used to call a lot.
We used to prank call.
Yeah,
we used to make prank calls. Remember the Mr. Crosby?
Yes. Yeah. We did a lot of calls.
We would get a random number out of the phone book, and we would just decide to hit them with repeated pranks over the years.
No, but we actually did do a few targeted pranks as well, where we elicit information from the parents about the make and model of car, their license number, various registrations. I actually did a series of prank calls once. You weren't there. I was at someone's house once and I was bored, and these people ended up getting a phone call from the AFP regarding that. Someone obviously had no sense of humor and decided to report the prank call. Luckily, the call was not done from my place of residence, but I did get a phone call from the owners of the house.
It's a special tip there. Always make sure to do it away. Yeah. We used to use the old
payphones.
And hit the kids' helpline. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That's one number I remember. 1-800-55-1800, the old kids' helpline. That was always a great prank call back then.
Look, I'm not sure how I feel about that, because I think that was a legitimate service.
I'm not saying it's morally defensible.
No,
it was done.
Yeah.
It was done back in the day, yeah.
I believe we did, we also, there are a fair few I'm thinking about now, but do you remember Guido Hatsis?
Of course.
Yes, yeah. They're the king of prank calls. I think he somehow called Buckingham Palace once as well and asked for the Queen. Yeah. That was fantastic. It's a shame that's a bygone era. I think in this era of caller ID and mobile phones, I think the prank call doesn't exist anymore, really. It's a lost art form.
Absolutely. But you know what I discovered the other day? You can make free phone calls from any payphone these days. So the payphone, I mean, the possibilities for young lads up to no good, they really have opened up, haven't they?
But then again, how hard is it to acquire a mobile phone these days?
Yeah, but that's traceable.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I mean, if someone gets repeatedly harassed, you could probably, the AFP or whoever you call, could probably figure out who's done it. Even if you use the no caller ID function on your mobile phone.
True.
You're still taking a big risk, aren't you?
Yeah, I think you
I
are.
would advise any youngsters up to
Yeah.
no good. Always use the payphone. Don't put your trust in the silent number feature on your mobile phone.
No, exactly. We live in a surveillance state. Which actually reminds me, James. Now we've gone around the bush here. We were talking about AI and it impacting your brain, but let's come back to that later. This surveillance state topic has reminded me about something going on in England, in the UK at the moment. Talk of digital ID.
Yes,
Have you been following that? Any thoughts on that?
I have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. The UK is a couple of steps ahead of us on a few things. I think they have now. I mean, obviously, basically every square inch of most metropolitan areas in Canberra, most highly dense areas in Canberra, are covered by CCTV,
Including our own studio. We've got
yep.
16 cameras in here, actually.
That's right. Yep. Shout out to the surveillance state.
Yep.
Um,
I am the surveillance state, mate.
but in the UK, they have technology now where they can track you just in the way that they can in China. They can track you across areas. They can basically track one person across a city.
It's interesting you say that, James, because like what I'm hearing about the UK, and I haven't been in a while, but I've got friends who live there, and I've got my brother recently travelled over there. It seems like you've got all this surveillance, all this cutting edge technology, yet it's still the London especially is still one of the most crime ridden hellholes in the world. I've heard apparently if you were walking out in London, James, with a watch like yours, within 5 minutes you'd be robbed. It seems like nothing is being done to combat the crime rate, yet you've got this crazy police state, crazy surveillance state going on. So it's like you have to wonder, what is the purpose of all this tracking if they can't even make it safe for you to live there?
The thing about the CCTV is it's no match for a balaclava, right?
How about a face mask, a latex rubber mask, the likes of which are used in movies such as Mission Impossible?
A Richard Nixon mask.
Yes, a Richard
Point
Nixon.
Break. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I mean, there was a theory actually when Biden was president that he had 2 or 3 body doubles who would appear in public for him for public appearances, and they were basically people wearing masks. And some people I did see a few images comparing 3 different photographs of Biden, and they were all quite different, which lends a bit of credit to that theory. Given that Biden was definitely, we know now he is suffering from cognitive decline, and he definitely was back then.
What explained his sudden surge in performances? I mean, there were certain key big events where he would suddenly just seem to be, you'd see a flash of the Biden of old, wouldn't you? Because
yes.
On his day,
he was a sharp.
Go on, say it, Sad, motherfucker.
Yeah, no, look,
he was a sharp motherfucker.
Yeah, look, I don't want to, guys.
Motherfucker.
Guys, James, we don't want to get cancelled or unmonetized on YouTube.
Okay, Joe Biden is not a motherfucker.
No, it's more the language. But yeah, he was a sharp mofo. Let's say that, And, obviously, poor guy, suffering from cognitive decline, was definitely a plant as president. Someone else is controlling the show behind the scenes. But he had moments of greatness.
They put up the Trump White House. They put up a presidential walk of fame. They did portraits of all the presidents, and under Joseph Robinette Biden, they had a picture of the auto pen that was used to sign legislation under his watch. Look, clearly sending the signal that he wasn't really in charge.
Yeah, look, I did see that.
What do we think of that, Saad?
Look, is it true? I mean, the message behind is it true? Yeah, probably.
It's undoubtedly true. I mean, he wasn't. I mean, it was very petty.
It was very petty.
I think it's very.
Trump is not doing himself any favors anymore. I was a big Trump supporter in as far as I can be as an Australian. Like literally,
I'm still loyal to the big guy.
Yeah, I mean, I was quite like, I had genuine hope that Trump coming into a leadership position in America would really be better for the world, better for America, and would signal a new light for the American people, and then would hopefully that kind of prosperity would rub off onto Australia, the UK, the rest of the world. But it hasn't. I think his leadership has been lacking in many departments. I'm not an economic policy expert. I'm an expert in nothing whatsoever. So listen to nothing I say, but I just think he has been severely lacking in everything. And my only conclusion is that someone's got something on him and someone is telling him what to do.
And who would that someone be, do you think, Saad?
Probably someone related to Jeffrey Epstein, perhaps.
Perhaps
Yeah,
indeed.
exactly,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. Did you see this week they released new documents that suggested that Elon was at least invited to Epstein Island?
Look, I didn't see that, but being invited somewhere doesn't make you a criminal, though, does it?
Well,
James,
he's always admitted to having been invited, but he said he turned them down.
100%. Well, Elon Musk, you'd have to assume, is a fairly intelligent person. You'd have to think so.
Very intelligent.
Very intelligent, you know. He has a lot of haters. Some people say his entire backstory is fabricated. But, you know, when you see him on podcasts and you see him speaking, and when he answers questions, you think, no, this guy's got a brain cell or two, definitely. He's up there. And so perhaps he knew something that the others didn't, or perhaps he was smart enough to have the foresight that perhaps he shouldn't go somewhere where there's a risk of him being put in a compromised situation.
Absolutely.
I want to talk about, with our audience, the digital ID that's being proposed in England by Keir Starmer. Strange name, isn't it? Keir Starmer. I've never heard that. I've never heard the name Keir prior to him becoming Prime Minister. Did you ever hear that name, James?
I certainly have heard it. Yeah.
You have? Whereabouts? Yeah. What's his origins? Is he Jewish, Polish? Where's he from?
His missus is Jewish.
Oh,
He's married to a woman of the faith, a Shebrew, if you will.
Okay, yeah.
He's married to a Shebrew.
That's a strange coincidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I think Keir's just one of your standard names. Do you remember Kieran? You would have known a few
Kieran, of course, yeah. Kieran
yeah.
is a very, very popular name here. Yeah.
So it's a derivative of that, I would have said.
I see. Okay, interesting. Anyway, he's proposing this. My immediate reaction to that, I suppose, is why? Why do we need a digital ID? It's one of those things that sounds like it'd be great in theory, and you're selling people on convenience. But we've seen what's happening in China when it comes with this kind of national ID, digital credit kind of system. And to me, it seems like it's a way where you bring a law or a system in, and then invariably there'll be scope creep. So if we think back to 9/11, think of some of the laws that were introduced in America and even Australia back then. I think there were various laws about ASIO and their power to arrest people and hold them without cause for a certain amount of time. Now, those laws are supposed to be temporary laws to help combat terrorism, but I believe those laws still exist. James, can you comment on that?
Well, I mean, all the security agencies' powers increased massively over the period leading up to COVID, around the time of COVID, and the AFP, ASIO, etc. They can more or less take over your social media account. They can be logged into as you on social media. They can post things for you. They can
wait. Sorry. Can you clarify what that means? What do you mean by they can be logged in as you on social media?
They can if they want. They can post things. They can delete things. They can do whatever they want on your social media account.
How would they get access to your social media account?
They just take it. They were given all those powers. They can take up access. They can reside in the critical infrastructure of any of a telecommunications company, whoever. They've got basically every power you could imagine. But if AFP want to investigate you, they can be in your Facebook right now, Saad, making posts as you, reading your messages, anything they want. So basically, as you said, the power never goes backwards with these guys. They never forfeit powers that they're given.
Yeah.
So, I mean, digital ID may seem like a scary thing, but the nightmare's already here. We're already living it. And in terms of centralized ID, don't we all have to have a MyGov anyway to access our government services?
No, look, we don't have to have a MyGov, I don't think.
But you more or less do.
You more or less do to make your life easier. But I think the point here with the whole digital ID system is that it's required to work. That's the main thing they'll be in England. They're saying a digital ID will be required to work. It will be linked to your bank account. It'll be linked to everything. So then the question there is, how far will they go? So for example, say that it's linked to your tax portal and you are behind on your taxes. So imagine you want to log in somewhere to buy something. Does it mean that request to purchase something could be denied because you're behind on your taxes? Where will it stop? Because it seems like this kind of scope has not been clarified exactly. And as we know, scope creep happens, and generally the government, once they increase the powers they have, they never give it back. Everything comes on as temporary, and then it somehow ends up staying forever. I believe in the 1940s, or was it 30s, a certain German declared emergency powers and then used that to essentially start a war.
Well, the government's response to a social problem or a problem of any kind is always more government.
Yeah.
They never see it through any other lens
Yeah.
like that, right? But let's be honest, a lot of the stuff, a lot of the nightmare scenarios you're talking about now, Saad, they already exist. We see people who go against the grain, who challenge orthodoxies, people like Nigel Farage. They already lose their bank accounts.
Yes.
And we don't need to have any new legislation, draconian or otherwise, brought in to facilitate that, do we? I mean, they can already take that stuff away from you, right?
Yeah, they can already take that away from you. I think in Vietnam this week, 80 million bank accounts were shut down because of people not having digital IDs. And let's be honest, a lot of those 80 million is a lot of people. A lot of those bank accounts would have been dead bank accounts, or bank accounts that belong to people who have passed away. But that shows you that happened, I think, this week or last week in Vietnam. I saw that in the news as well. And these people did not register for a digital ID. Therefore, their bank accounts were frozen or shut down. So that shows you where it can go. We saw it during COVID in Canada, where the trucker convoys were protesting against some of the lockdown laws, and basically their bank accounts were frozen as well. So you're right. That's a very good point, James. That all this stuff that they're proposing already exists in some way, but I worry that kind of making it mandatory for everyone just concretes, or cements rather, what they can do, and will just ultimately make your life more difficult if you choose to not comply and you choose to not bend the knee.
It's going to become much easier just to turn off the lights, isn't it? Just at one central point.
Yeah.
And that's that's something to be feared.
Yes.
And that's a road that you can't undo it, can you? Once you go down that road.
No, exactly. On the plus side, however, look, Keir Starmer's Prime Minister until 2029, something like that. Is that about right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Whenever it is. Yep.
How long do government infrastructure projects take to complete? I've got a personal story about this, actually. Prior to becoming a professional podcaster, as I am now, many years ago, I used to work for a large IT company who would help deliver government contracts. Now, I've got an anecdote regarding that. Now, we had hired a specialist to help us on this specific project. And this specialist was paid an absurd amount of money to be there and not do a lot, but he was the expert. And he basically told me, off the record once, he goes, Saad, I could do this entire project myself in 6 weeks and still have time for lunch and spend a bit of time browsing the internet. But somehow the government is paying this company millions and millions of dollars, and you guys are given a timeline of 12 to 24 months. Now, I was recently, this was at least 10 years ago, I was recently in touch with some old colleagues of mine. They actually contacted me about some other work. And I asked them, hey, that project that we were doing back in my day, how'd that end up going? And they said, oh, yeah, it's still going. We haven't finished it yet. So that's 10 years on for a relatively simple IT project that was to be done by the government, and that project was not completed. So I'm highly doubtful that this national ID card verification system, whatever it's called, the Brit card, I think they're calling it Brit card. Does that sound familiar to you, James? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're calling it that. I'm highly skeptical that whether that will actually occur, just purely from a technological point of view. And there's already about 1.5 million signatures in England on a petition protesting it, and you've got people like Nigel Farage who are heavily against it. So I don't think it will happen, but it's something that could happen in the future should someone, in the same vein as Keir Starmer, take over as next Prime Minister. The other thing I want to talk about is the security aspect here. I don't trust the government when it comes to fixing a pothole. And I've got another anecdote here. Just near our studio, a few months ago, the government came by. They closed the access point to the driveway off for 2 weeks so they could fix a very small driveway, okay? There was also a pothole next to there, which they fixed that as well. It's been 6 weeks, that pothole is back. So I don't trust, and we can post a picture of this pothole here if you like. They fixed the driveway, did a piss poor job. They got the angle wrong. It's not very smooth. Whatever, it works, but it could be better. But the pothole is back. So I don't trust the government to fix a pothole. So how can you trust them to handle the personal data for the entire population? This seems like a hacker's paradise, James.
Yeah, I suppose so. But the toothpaste is really out of the tube, isn't it? I mean, Optus has been hacked.
Yep.
Medibank has been hacked. National Australia Bank has been hacked. Your stuff is already out there on the dark web
Yes.
for sale for probably for like 1 cent,
Yeah,
2 cents
yeah.
maybe to get
Yes.
everything you've got. So, I mean, look, the damage is done, right?
But this makes it easier. So imagine there was one centralized database that had your access, your entire digital ID, your digital footprint, your digital self online, access to your health records, your driving records, your tax records, banking, everything in one centralized place. Now imagine if some Russian hackers or Chinese hackers were to somehow find a backdoor into that, and let's be honest, they will, because there's no such thing as a secure computer. It doesn't exist. When you and I were younger, we were quite interested in computer security, and one of the things that you learned was there's no such thing as computer security unless you have a computer that's turned off and not plugged in. That's literally the only way you can be secure, and even then, someone will find a way to break in. So you've got people who'll be able to get that data and literally steal your entire persona and be you online, and this makes it easier. So that's also one of the major questions regarding this. You mentioned the Optus data breach. I think Optus recently had some issues with some overseas call centers and the 000 services.
They were upgrading their 000 infrastructure, weren't they? Because they have to, as a telco, they have to make it possible for you to call 000.
Yes.
The government sort of says, if you're going to run this telecommunications network, you have to make 000 available at all times and for free.
Yeah, and look, the irony, funny thing part there is that the CEO of Optus, I think there was an outage for some time that caused 3 people to die, perhaps. Very not good news. But the irony was the CEO blamed the Indian technical staff for this.
Really?
Yes. I just find that a bit ironic, because it's kind of like, I guarantee you, he would have been all for the outsourcing of these jobs to India to save money. Taking away jobs from hardworking local Australians and putting them offshore so that we can save money and deliver a higher profit for the Optus shareholders. I think Optus is owned by Singtel, I believe.
It is,
right?
yes, that's right.
So he would have been all for that. Yet when there's an issue, he's happy to blame them and he's not taking the blame himself. It pissed me off. That attitude really did piss me off, James.
What do we think about the fact that Singapore owns one of our essential communications networks? Is that a good thing?
Perhaps not, because I think the vast majority of Singaporeans are of Chinese descent, and I'm not saying anything wrong with Chinese people at all. I love Chinese people. I've got lots of Chinese friends, but let's be honest, the CCP is perhaps doesn't necessarily have Australia's best interests at heart, as far as I know. I'm not too familiar with all this, James, but from what I've heard, China is not necessarily. China wants to buy up lots of Australian land, Australian farms, Australian water, but perhaps their intentions aren't entirely honourable.
I think having anything that's essential infrastructure like that, like a telecommunications network, covering that many millions of Australians in foreign hands is a bad
Yes.
thing. Yeah.
I believe in the US, several networking hardware by Huawei and some other Chinese telco manufacturers they basically found chips in there that were essentially just bugs. And as a result, and they realized that if there's one of these devices on any government network, that entire network is now compromised. So they basically had to make sure there were no Chinese network devices on any government networks. Makes sense, because why would you have a foreign adversary, effectively an adversary? Like let's be honest, the world's not a friendly place at the moment. Why would you allow them to have access to your sensitive data networks that contain all your classified information? It does not make sense. Yet in Australia, what are we doing?
Indeed.
Exactly. But yeah, digital ID, James. So you reckon the cat's out of the bag? I think you think that it's coming and it's not going to make any real difference?
I tend to assume that a Russian man of some description has already taken out several credit cards in my name.
Okay.
And there's only so much I can do to stop it.
Yeah. Okay. Look, I'm a bit more optimistic than you, perhaps. I think that, if you exercise good, personal security, careful, you can minimize your dangers, the dangers of, losing your identity and being hacked. I hate that word, because the word hacked, or being
breach,
a hacker,
isn't it? Or a link,
yeah, it's a breach.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember back in the day when we were young, if you were a hacker, it was like this kind of elite level thing. Now they use the word hack to refer to like 5 hacks to use your blender.
What about freakers? Do you remember freakers?
Oh, yeah, telephone.
Let's bring back the verb
Word
to
freaking,
freak.
to freak. Yeah, guys. If you haven't, just on a tangent, guys, if you haven't seen the 1997 movie or 96, somewhere in the 90s, movie called Hackers, had a very young Angelina Jolie in it. I highly recommend you watch it. Absolute classic. Absolutely banging soundtracks. The soundtrack is just phenomenal. I think put together by Orbital, one of the seminal electronic
and some classic
bands.
Hacking scenes as well, wasn't it? You go into the MS-DOS interface.
Yeah.
There'd be size 14 Arial white font.
Yeah.
And you would just put in hack FBI.
Yeah.
Press enter.
But it was look. There was some legitimate computer things in there. I think. Look, it's Hollywood. The ideas were there, but fantastic movie, really, really good movie. Now, James, where were we? I think we've done a bit of an ADHD thing here, and we've lost our train of thought.
We were just talking about the digital ID.
Yeah. Digital IDs probably bad. The reality is, it's probably already here in some way or form. Social credit system, social credit score probably exists in some form as well. Like if you want to get a bank loan, they look at everything. But this reminds me, James. Are you familiar with the British comedy Father Ted?
I am, yeah.
Yes. Now, one of the writers of that, I believe he was Irish. He was arrested the other week at Heathrow Airport for some Twitter posts.
He was. Yeah, Graham Linehan. I think his name is.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the content of these Twitter posts?
I am vaguely familiar with them. One of them was he's very much against the idea of transsexual women. Is that the one for men who become women?
I don't know, James. I can't keep track.
I never get that one right. The idea of transsexual women being in women's spaces.
Oh, yes. Okay, so essentially he was against the idea of men who want to be women being in women's spaces.
Yeah.
Sounds reasonable. I think we discussed this briefly the other week.
And one of his tweets said that, if you should ever discover one of these people in the women's bathroom, you should punch them in the balls. That was among the tweets that caught the ire of the cop. But there were five heavily armed police were waiting for him upon arrival to Heathrow Airport from a trip from the US, and so they took him to custody. And he had a medical episode while in custody. His blood pressure went so high that he eventually had to get taken to hospital. But apparently, according to the Times of London, up to 30 people a day are being arrested in the UK for tweeting offensive things. Can you imagine that?
I can't imagine that.
30 a day.
James, I think you and I, then, if we were in the UK, we probably would have been arrested several times by now.
We would definitely at least be on a watch list.
And look, it's important to clarify, everything that we say here is purely for comedic value and is not meant to be taken seriously.
I don't think it's a get out of jail clause, though, is it, in the UK?
In the UK it's not. But again, this just does bring us back to digital ID. So now if you have a digital ID and you need that to register for social media accounts, you need to verify who you are, which is going to be coming to Australia soon, I believe.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you've got to prove that you're over 16,
doesn't that mean that? Exactly. Now, again, I personally think that children under 16 should not have social media. I think that no one should have social media. It's been a net negative to our lives, really.
It has been, yeah.
There have been some business benefits for businesses, but really the whole social media influencer thing as a business did not exist prior. And really, what do social influencers do? They don't add any value to the world. They don't create anything. They just create mindless content and try and call it advertising. And
they're hastening the demise of civilization.
Hastening the demise of civilization. All right, great. So no one should have social media, but the cat's out of the bag. Under 16s or under 18s, I think, certainly should not have it because, it leads to bullying problems in school. Back in my day, James, if you wanted to bully someone, you'd go to them and you'd bully them and you'd call them a baguette to their face.
You do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, you do it the old-fashioned way. But now they do it online and you've got people committing suicide because of it. And that's also because, parents don't know how to handle it. So, yeah, great, no social media. But there's surely got to be a way to do this to enforce this without having to provide some sort of digital identification system, which is going to be coming into Australia. And I think this whole banning social media for children under 16, it's just a pathway to digital ID in Australia. And then what's going to happen? You say something on Twitter, the police come to your door and tell you, oh, you can't say that, okay? And then next minute you try and set up another account on another social media service and you're not able to because it's all linked, because your ID has been flagged. You're driving your car, you get pulled over for no reason for a random breath test. The police then know who you are and that you said certain things. They can start questioning you again, all because of this kind of central digital ID. Right now, you're right, digital ID does exist, but it's all kind of compartmentalized. You have a Medicare card, you have a driver's license, you have a passport. It's not this one thing that's all linked across the different services. But I think once it all is linked to your ID, and then you need that ID for online services, I think that's when it's game over.
The problem is what is offensive. I mean, you're familiar, of course, with the e-safety commissioner, Julie Immigrant, who is an American woman, which I find it's odd that she is deciding what is in good taste and what is in bad taste in Australia. I mean, we have a foreign person with foreign sensibilities deciding that.
I mean, she may decide that cotton is in bad taste.
Exactly. It can't be far off, can it, before things like that? And whereas, and Linehan's remark, I wouldn't have thought, but that's the real risk, isn't it?
Yes.
Is that what is judged offensive suddenly changes.
Because now, you see, I've seen some posts online of, the current crop of kids, in their late teens, early 20s, the Gen Zs or whatever, watching TV shows such as Friends and saying Friends was incredibly offensive. I can't remember it being offensive. I was never a fan of Friends. I watched a few episodes of Friends recently. It just came on somehow, or where it was. And I was like, this is actually a really bad show. I can't understand how it was so popular. I suppose it was a different time. I was watching it and I was like, this is not funny at all. But, Joey was funny, but everything else, it wasn't really funny. But different time, different standards of comedy. So just like how comedy changes, what's offensive also changes. Can you then retroactively apply those standards? So if I said something 5 years ago that wasn't considered offensive then, but now is, can I be penalized or prosecuted for something that I said 5 years ago when it was a different time, a different culture?
Good question.
Yep. We'll find out, I suppose. I'd like to share a story whilst we're here with our audience.
Speaking of things that may or may not be offensive.
Yeah, exactly. Facebook Marketplace, I'm sure, is a platform that most of our viewers will be familiar with. It's a fantastic place to find bargains, sell unwanted things. I often spend a lot of time on Marketplace looking for things to buy, and I end up with a lot of junk that I don't need as a result. One of the perils of having ADHD. Now, I recently moved house and we needed some shoe racks. As is typical with someone with ADHD, I vastly overestimated the amount of shoe racks that I would need.
You overestimated the amount of shoes that were in your possession.
No, I have a lot. I own a lot of shoes. In fact, I own several pairs of the same shoe that are still brand new in boxes because when they're on sale, I like to buy them. And they're just there, and I think maybe one day they'll become a collector's item. They're probably not, but it's nice to always have fresh shoes in case a pair get damaged. But I suppose I overestimated the number of shoes that were in daily circulation and required a rack. Okay, so
easy mistake to make.
Easy mistake to make.
Who hasn't done that?
Exactly. So I purchased 6 shoe racks. Okay, I think each rack had 4 shelves, and each shelf held about 4 pairs of shoes. So the 4, 8, 16 pairs. 16.
That's enough for a bowling alley.
Yeah, exactly.
That is a bowling alley's.
Yeah, but look, James, they were on sale. There was a good price. Shipping was free, so I bought them. I built 2 of the shoe racks and stocked them up with mine and my family's shoes that were in daily circulation. So in the door in the entrance to the house, as a Muslim person, we don't wear shoes inside the house. Much like a lot of civilizations don't wear shoes in the house because it doesn't make sense to wear dirty shoes inside your house. But that's a conversation for another time. I built the shoe racks, put all the shoes on, and I was like, okay, I now have 4. I bought 6, but I've only needed 2. What should I do with these 4 shoe racks? Now, I'm a charitable person. I'm a kind person. I like to think of myself as one. And I thought, well, you know what? I got these for a good price. I could just return them, but then I've got to kind of take them back to the shop, and it's just pain. I'll just put them on the marketplace for a cheap price. So I think these shoe racks cost me about $110 each. I put them up for sale for $60 each. I'm like, someone out there will need some shoe racks, and they can have them for a great price, and it's a form of charity.
That is an active charity.
Yeah, I think so. You know, because also, you know, look, as a general rule, I've always found you can also give things away on Marketplace. Few problems with that. You just get inundated with messages with people, and then you get some absurd requests like, can you drop it off to me, or can you hold it? Can you do that? I'm like, no, mate, I just want to give it away. Also, but then also there are some unscrupulous people online who will basically use it as an opportunity to get things for free, and then they'll list them up for sale later themselves. Nothing wrong with capitalism, great, but you know, there's lines. You know, taking things that are essentially being given for charity is a bit low. Much like when you go to an op shop like Vinnie's or one of those kind of shops, you see people there whose entire reason for being there is to buy things so they can resell them. Am I a fan of that? No, I think it's a bit dodgy, but what can you do? I think when the lights just went out, guys, but I'm sure you can still see me. But we've got a bit more of a dramatic shadow here. Anyway, I advertised these on for sale, and I had a lot of people contact me about the shoe racks. I then, being a reasonable person, I said to the first person who messaged me, no worries, you can have them. And that's when the problems began. First of all, he said, oh, I can't come. When can I come pick them up? And I said, look, I've got to go to work. I'll leave home at 9:20. I need you here by 9:20. He goes, okay, no worries. I'll be there. At 9:25, he's nowhere to be found. He's not at my house. So I said, messaged him, said, sorry, mate, I have to go. He goes, oh, no, I'll be there at 10:30. I said, no worries. Let me go to work, set things up. I can then dash back home really quickly and meet you at 10:30. I do that. 10:45, he's nowhere to be found. Now, let's just make something else clear, James. The price had been agreed on. He was more than happy to pay the $60 per shoe rack. He was going to take 4 of them. Perhaps he had a large family and needed a lot of shoes. Who knows?
Maybe he was studying up a bowling alley of his own.
Maybe it's like, well, exactly. So he took the, he said, the price had been agreed. So what's 60 times 4, James?
At $240.
$240. Excellent. Not a huge amount of money, a bit of cash. I asked him, can you bring cash? Because I don't like giving my phone number out to random people and all my bank account details for these security reasons. He goes, no worries, I'll bring cash. 10:45 arrives, he's not there. Now, I said to him, mate, where are you? He goes, oh, I'm 5 minutes away. He finally turns up. Shockingly, he did not have any cash on him as he had promised. So I had no choice but to give him my phone number and get him to transfer me by Pay ID. Now, what really annoyed me, guys, was the deal had been done. He had mucked me around on time. I waited for him. Just before he transfers, he goes, oh, can you do them for $40 each instead of $60? It's just that I've traveled a long way to be here. I said to him, mate, you've traveled 15 minutes from Belconnen. You have not traveled a long way. And no, you cannot have them for $40 each. The price was $60, which is a bargain, and you know it. Glad to say he did pay the money. But what really annoyed me, James, was that why did he even ask? Now, guys, there's no prizes at all for guessing this man's ethnicity.
Hungarians again.
Yeah, those Hungarians. No prizes for guessing his ethnicity. But what I don't understand is why do some people have this compulsive urge to try and get a bargain in terms of, or try and rip you off? Because he was already getting a bargain by trying to ask me to sell them for $40. Really, he was trying to rip me off. This is not a bargain anymore.
It must be something to do with the time they spent under the Soviet Union. The famines associated with that.
Yes, perhaps.
The shortfalls of goods.
Yeah. Now, one person did suggest to me that a lot of people, they come from a country where they're used to being ripped off, and therefore it's ingrained in their DNA to try and get a bargain. But guys, when you come to Australia, don't do that. I think all commercial transactions or private transactions, you want an outcome that is fair for the buyer and the seller. And by trying to negotiate every last dollar, all you're doing is making people pissed off at you. What do you think, James?
Hard to argue.
Hard to argue. On that James, anything more for this week? I think that's a good place to end it.
All good. Done and dusted, brother.
Thanks, James.